get started. All right, we are recording. All right, well, welcome everyone. I'm Elena Dunn, AVP for admissions here at PAU, and I'm really just here to make sure Zoom works. So I'm going to be here in the background, kind of making sure everyone gets into the room. But our host today is actually Megan, Dr. Speciali, who is in our counseling department. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you kind of jump in.
That sounds wonderful. After me, just a heads up, I'm going to turn the mic to Shelby and Tasmir and Griselda so they can do introductions as well. But hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Dr. Megan Speciali. I am the chair of admissions for the Masters in Counseling program and also core faculty in the program as well. Shelby, would you like to pop in?
Hi, my name is Shelby Cookie. I am an admissions counselor. I work with both of our master's programs. So if some of you, I recognize your names. I've talked to you a couple of times, but you'll be interacting with me if you choose to apply for the Masters in Counseling program. I just want to apologize in advance. We have a wind advisory. So if you hear weird noises, it's just like stuff blowing around outside.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tasmir. I am a first-year student in the Masters in Counseling program, currently pursuing the LPCC route.
Hello, everyone. My name is Griselda. I am a second-year master's level MFT student. Hopefully, we'll be graduating this August. So I live in LA, so definitely welcome to the prospective students.
Thanks, y'all. Is there we have any more introductions? I think we hit it. Okay. Oh, yeah, come on in.
My 2-year-old just ran in for a second. My name is Sarah. I am applying to the Masters in Counseling program.
Oh, great. Sarah, thank you so much. Probably right before you popped in, we had done an invitation to do a chat introduction. So if you haven't yet introduced yourself in the chat, please feel free and send through your name, where you're at in the world, and what you're currently binge watching, if you are so inclined. But you all are here today to learn more about the social justice initiatives in the Masters in Counseling program. And my understanding is that a lot of you are prospective students, that you have some interest in our program. And my hope today is that I can kind of demystify and answer some of the questions that you might have about the ways that the counseling program is really addressing issues related to diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and social justice. So I've prepared a few slides today to really keep me on track. But at any point in today's hopefully discussion, but at any point, especially when I have my slides shared, you are welcome to put any questions or comments into the chat box, or you're welcome to use the hand raise function, and I can toggle back and forth between discussion and sharing the slides. Okay, so any and all questions are welcome. And I know that Elena and Shelby will also be taking a look at the chat box. So if I happen to miss something while my slides are shared, you will be seen and heard. So, okay, I will go ahead and get us started with a little share screen action. Here we go. All right. So just to run through of what we're going to be really addressing today. So we've done our introductions. I'm also going to introduce some key concepts related to DEIB, so diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, social justice, and multicultural counseling competency. I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about how we address these areas within the Masters in Counseling program. We have students present, as you've already met, and I'm going to be welcoming them to share their experiences, because oftentimes as a prospective student, it can be so helpful to hear from folks who are enrolled in the program and who have some experience with some of these initiatives at that point in their progress in the degree. And then at the end, we're going to have a discussion. I'm going to ask you some reflection questions. So we're hoping to open it up for a whole group discussion and a Q&A as well. So to get us started, I actually copy pasted this from the website. I'm not going to read through it, but one of the things that maybe many of you, since you already are interested in this program and have probably done a little bit of research, you've probably stumbled across this mission statement. And there are some words in here that I think are really worth noticing. So one of the things that I think PAU distinguishes itself among a sea of master's in counseling programs is this very clear focus on social justice, diversity, and multiculturalism. And in fact, when we look at our 5 core values of our program, and in fact, our department, we are vested in creating a diverse and inclusive learning community for students, staff, and faculty, excellent evidence-based education and clinical supervision for our students, promoting healing and empowerment by taking a look at and taking action on social privilege and oppression. Also prioritizing research scholarship at the highest level. And I think at the root of all of this, we are community focused, community informed, and collaborating with our community, both here in Palo Alto in the Bay Area, but also nationally and internationally, because we know so many of our students are coming from, areas all over the world. So I start with this slide really to say, we have these DEIB concepts really integrated throughout the mission, vision, and foundation of the Master's in Counseling program. But oftentimes new students looking in can be like, okay, so what does this mean? What does this actually look like? And what types of experiences am I going to access by being a student in your program? So I'll start at the most basic level. So I keep using the acronym DEIB. What does that actually stand for? So D stands for diversity here. So diversity is kind of one of those buzzwords that a lot of programs use all the time. And but in this case, it's important to recognize that when we see diversity, when we talk about diversity, we are not just talking about racial, ethnic diversity. We're not just talking about gender, but we're really talking about the range of human differences, from cultural identities to experiential backgrounds, career backgrounds, placed throughout the lifespan. And we use this term to really signify that there's, people and experiences from a variety of different backgrounds. And PAU and the Master's in Counseling program is really focused on understanding and learning about the diversity of not just our clients, but also our students, staff, and faculty, and really how that impacts systems and the processes that we use. Equity is so that notion of having fair and impartial opportunities. Really at the core of this sense of equity, we are talking about centering voices that are traditionally left out of conversations, especially conversations related to policymaking and governance, et cetera, right? And so from an equity model, we're really focused on looking to folks with marginalized backgrounds and identities to help center and steer the conversation related to diversity and multiculturalism. I for inclusion. So inclusion here is the act of creating an environment where all people, regardless of background, feel welcomed, supported, and valued, and truly seen for not just being a student or staff or faculty member, but all of the identities that they bring to the table. They feel seen and validated in all of those identities. And then lastly, belonging. So belonging is a sense of relatedness or connection that you feel related to the Master's in Counseling program, related to Palo Alto University, and how well kind of wrapped into your learning environment you truly feel. So these are all concepts that we kind of keep at the forefront of many of our conversations around different aspects of the counseling planning process. I'm going to talk more about those in a minute. Let's start first. So what is cultural competence? I've used this word already at this point. Given that cultural competence is part of the foundation in terms of how we structure the MA counseling program, I thought it would be important to really talk to you a little bit about what cultural competence means, kind of what it is, what it isn't. And so I've actually pulled a definition from the 2016 American Counseling Association multicultural counseling competencies and social justice competencies. I've cited it at the bottom, and I'm happy to share a link for this. But the counseling profession as a whole has identified really these 4 primary areas of cultural competency and what it looks like for us as counselors and therapists to be meeting our clients with cultural competence. The first of which is understanding the complexities of diversity and multiculturalism on the counseling relationship, recognizing the negative influence of oppression on mental health and well-being, understanding individuals in the context of their social environment, and integrating social justice advocacy into the various modalities of counseling. Now, it's important to note here that cultural competence is lifelong. So when you join this program and graduate and go out into the world, your journey of becoming a culturally competent therapist is only beginning and will continue throughout your life, will continue throughout your career. Now, this is a little daunting to think about, that you can work on this for an entire life and still not be truly culturally competent, but be a work in progress. But this notion is really centered on this concept of cultural humility, and the sense that we will never fully understand the experiences, the total experiences of other people from other cultures and with other identities. But this process of better understanding really starts with us understanding ourselves, the space that we take up in the world, what privileges and what oppressions we have faced in our lifespans, kind of how those experiences shape the way that we view the world and ultimately the way that we view others. I will pause here and just see if anyone has any questions. All right. So specifically, the counseling department uses what is called kind of this 4-pronged approach of knowledge, skills, awareness, and action. So as a student in this program, you will have opportunities to strengthen each of these core areas in your pathway to becoming a licensed counselor. First of which is knowledge. So when I use the term knowledge, I'm talking about kind of the content that you will learn in your classes. So this is going to be knowledge about how issues of culture, power, privilege, oppression, identity development contribute to clients' mental and emotional health, and also how these different factors come into the counseling relationship. So these will be theories of cultural competence. You'll be looking at theories and research related to best practice and multicultural counseling competencies. But this is really focused on content, right? Expanding your knowledge base to include foundational multicultural counseling information. This next part is when we really start focusing about skills development. So during this program, you will have opportunities to develop skills where you can take what you've learned about multicultural counseling and actually apply it for your relationships with clients. So this can look like plenty of different ways, but one of the major ways that we take a look at and really work on multicultural skill development is how you talk about culture to your clients in session. What is your comfort and confidence in being able to broach cultural differences with your clients and integrate clients' experiences related to their identities or their cultural backgrounds into the counseling process. The next area of your learning will be focused on awareness or self-awareness. So this is really I would probably put this at the starting point, right? This is the part in multicultural education where you start to look at yourself, your own unique backgrounds, your identities, your experiences in your family growing up, your community, your church, and think critically about the attitudes, biases, and beliefs that you grew up with, that you possess now, and think about the ways in which those beliefs or attitudes may impact your relationships with clients and may impact your approach to doing counseling. This is really an opportunity to better explore the unique privileges and oppressions that you bring to the table as a counselor, and then how those various privileges and oppressions may impact your relationships with clients. And then lastly, action. So knowledge, skills, and awareness, it really doesn't get you far without action, right? Action is a competency related to actually making change in the world, of doing advocacy work with and on behalf of your marginalized clients, seeking out continued learning opportunities to expand your mind to different experiences of folks from different walks of life. And really it kind of centers on this notion of lifelong learning, being out in the world, making change in your communities. So I did kind of a basic overview of some of the concepts that we're going to be using and some of the values that are at the heart of the MA counseling program. But this next set of slides is really going to focus on how we're doing it. So how do we take these concepts and actually apply it to real life learning and community engagement opportunities? And what does this mean for you as a prospective student? So I will start by introducing kind of a few different avenues that we integrate diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging initiatives. The first of which is at the admissions level. So this is the first point of contact for many of our, of course, prospective students to learn about our university. So I was going to stop and invite Shelby in if you'd like to speak a little bit more. Shelby is our senior admissions officer and is oftentimes the first point of contact for any student who is interested in our program. So Shelby, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about kind of the DEIB initiatives of our admissions process.
Sure, yeah, I'll share about the admissions process and a little bit about some work the admissions team is doing too amongst ourselves. So we do a holistic evaluation of all applications. So we're looking at everything. We're not ruling folks out based on one thing right away. We really are looking at every single application, work history, academic history, all facets of the application, because it gives us the most information about who an applicant is and how they might fit into our program. And then from there, after that initial review, we invite qualified applicants to interview in a group setting. And the group interview has been really beneficial in seeing how applicants interact with one another, how they interact with current students, faculty. It's been a really interesting process, but it gives, I think, a more, well-rounded view of who they are in an interview setting versus a one-on-one kind of question and answer situation. And the admissions team itself, so there's 7 of us, we're doing a lot of work within our team as well to make sure that we really keep diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging at the center of our work. So we're always reading up on best practices, we're reading books, we're reading research papers and constantly discussing at our team meetings issues related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So we're really trying to stay up to date with what's going on, make sure that we are doing our very best to eliminate as much bias as possible in the admissions process, trying to find methods that are the least biased. So maybe that means taking away certain types of testing or things like that related to best practices. And then we independently or as a group go to different trainings related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And then more recently, we've established the DEI admissions committee, which is actually more student-led. So we're getting just really getting deeper into what should the admissions process look like, where are their gaps currently, and things like that. So we have the admissions process, of course, which all of you as prospective students will experience, but I also wanted to share what the admissions team is sort of doing behind the scenes to make sure that we are doing the best we can on behalf of prospective students.
Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the curriculum and coursework. So in addition to the initiatives that are happening in the admissions, after you get through the admissions part of this long journey, you're immediately entering into your coursework, right? Your first, sometimes the first couple of quarters can be a doozy if you're readjusting to being a full-time student after some time off, which is often the case for our students. But during these first few quarters, you're really starting to get an orientation into the roles and responsibilities of a professional counselor. And because DEIB is so central to the work that counselors do, but also the mission and vision of PAU, your initial classes are really scaffolded in such a way that you have opportunities to start at kind of very foundational multicultural counseling learning opportunities. So when you first join the program, we do not have expectations that you are coming in with, a very fully formed understanding to multicultural counseling. That's what your first year in the program is about. So through scaffolding, and when I use the term scaffolding here, I'm really talking about kind of leveling the classes from entry level to intermediate to advanced in terms of the types of multicultural counseling skills that you are learning. So part of how that can creates this onboarding process, right? Where you enter into the program, you're meeting your cohort mates, and you are learning some of the basics around multicultural counseling with a team or a cohort of people who might be learning this, these issues for the very first time alongside you. So we try to create, especially in those early classes, opportunities for you to connect with your classmates and to reflect on this material that you may be learning, not just related to multiculturalism, but just what does it look like to become a counselor? And what does it look like to engage meaningfully as a helping professional with your clients? So throughout the curriculum, you start to see that these opportunities to develop counseling competency and multicultural counseling competency become more and more advanced as you further along in the program, ultimately leading you to clinical training, right? So your first year and a half to 2 years of coursework, it's preparing you to be able to make that transition into actually seeing clients, actually being a part of community agencies. The DEI content is also immersive. So our faculty really, so this is something that our faculty does multiple times a year. And we have a specific committee of people that are focused on examining how we teach multiculturalism in our class. So this is a conversation that your faculty are having kind of outside of the classroom with each other to really make sure that we are providing evidence-based and effective learning opportunities for students from all sorts of different backgrounds. And one of the things that we've really been focusing on as faculty is how to create collaborative learning opportunities. So collaborative learning opportunities really, it incorporates students' experiences and feedback into the learning process. So we recognize that as faculty, we may have expertise in specific areas, but so do our students. Our students are coming to the classroom with a lifetime of experiences that are central to creating and really establishing multicultural conversations, right? I couldn't possibly, as a teacher teaching multiculturalism, I can't possibly capture the broad range of voices that are represented in my classroom. That's why I look to and lean on my students to contribute their experiences to the conversation so we can create a more robust learning environment. So we integrate multicultural counseling knowledge in the curriculum in this scaffolded approach, but the way that we teach these topics is also focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We also empower our students to create self-directed learning outcomes. What this can look like in many of your classes is you will be given flexibility and autonomy to create learning, assignments that are really focused on areas that you are passionate about. So in many of our classes, we may have a final writing assignment, research assignment, or some sort of a practice role play. Many of our faculty allow students to self-select the population or target issues that you're focusing your paper on or you're focusing your assignment on. So what I tell students is that use your assignments as an opportunity to dig deeper into populations or issues that you feel passionate about, or you feel curious about, or even that you might feel scared to work with, right? Using those assignments as a means to kind of tailor your own education. And our faculty support the autonomy that you bring to this learning experience. And you know what areas of interest you have. And so the faculty are really invested in creating opportunities where you can explore those interests in more depth throughout the curriculum. And then finally, we do take a hands-on approach to cultural learning. So you will not just be reading textbook and watching PowerPoint slides. Your counseling faculty are committed to creating learning opportunities that are actually interesting to you, that are actually involving of your unique story and background, and are dynamic. And so this can be creating opportunities for role plays where you're role playing, working with clients from different cultural backgrounds, where you're practicing different counseling skills modeled on counseling competency. This can be a fishbowl, which is a role play in which the class observes, direct observation. So you can watch, your educators might show videos or previous counseling sessions with you. So you have an opportunity to actually see these skills in action. And then finally, community-centered engagement. Many of your classes will have opportunities to do service learning projects related to the unique needs of your community. So this may mean that you are in a multicultural counseling class and your teacher is asking you to create a service learning project related to a specific social issue in your community, whether it's homelessness, veteran mental health, addiction, etc. Choosing populations that are right there in your community and are in need of support and advocacy. So in this sense, this is really getting to the action step of that multicultural counseling competency, where we're really encouraging students to get involved in their communities and really look at some of the work that's already being done and contribute to that work in tandem with community stakeholders. Let's see. And here we have clinical training. So again, after all of your hours spent sitting in classroom, it's all of that is to get you to the clinical training part, right? To be able to sit in front of clients and do good, effective work with them. And ways that we try to integrate DEI initiatives into the clinical training, there are multiple different ways. I'm focusing on 3 here today, but I think one of the strengths of this process for many of our students is that it is student directed. When you are looking at practicum sites and counseling agencies where you'll be conducting your practicum and internship experience, you are supported to find sites that you want to work at. Our clinical training team does not slot you into a site. You are responsible for, figuring out where, in what arena you'd like to work and what agencies are most appealing to you with clinical training support. So you have people there to support you in that search, but ultimately you are selecting places that are, most important to you. I'm going to take a pause in the chat. Oh, thanks for posting that, Shelby. I also wanted to, I put a little note here on community collaborations. So many of the counseling agency sites that we have, in addition to just having them being practicum and internship sites for our program, we do have specific collaborations and partnerships with these agencies to make sure that our students have access to the community and to experiences that are supporting their multicultural learning and process, and is providing excellent supervision in these areas. But I know I wanted to invite in Criselda to talk a little bit about her experience kind of navigating family connections and what that experience has looked like for you.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. So Family Connections for me is a supplementary practicum site. So I'm conducting my hours at a school-based agency where I'm able to work face-to-face directly nearby my home. Family Connections, however, is a nonprofit agency that's based in 3 different locations up in NorCal. I believe one of them is San Mateo, one of them is San Jose, and the other one I'm still trying to familiarize myself with. But the amazing thing about Family Connections is that even though I'm here in Los Angeles, I'm able to do telehealth work with these families that are primarily Spanish-speaking families. And the way that I came across Family Connections was one of our PhD faculty professors, and I believe he is in charge of the doctoral program, Dr. Munoz. He had done a seminar on a Sunday evening talking about CBT, the effects of the pandemic, specifically addressing the Latino community. And I was fascinated because in there I learned about the e-clinic, which it's a lot of support again for the Latinx community, and in addition to any other minorities within the region, they are able to seek support at no cost to them. And so I was hoping to see if I could kind of volunteer, do some sort of collaboration with the e-clinic. However, because I was a master level student, Dr. Munoz got me in contact with Dr. Roller, which if you guys have the opportunity to be part of one of her classes or get some sort of mentorship from her, you guys are going to be very happy and very content because she's there to support all of her students. And I've never met someone so passionate about helping and giving back to the community as Dr. Roller. And so he contacted her, connected us, and she's like, well, what are your interests? And I'm like, well, I really want to work with the Spanish speaking population, because let's face it, we don't have a lot of support. There's not a lot of clinicians that are Spanish speaking, and they don't really understand our culture. Like there's certain things, a lot of barriers that the Latinx community has when it comes to mental health. They tend to associate it with something's crazy or something's wrong, and I don't want to be considered labeled. And it's like, no, it's about talking to someone that you trust, where you're able to process things that you don't feel comfortable sharing with family members, because at the end, we know that oftentimes that leads back into the family and somehow it becomes gossip rather than support. And so she's like, okay, I have the availability for you to work with my families. And in addition to that, she provides individual supervision for me. And she does that in Spanish. So I'm over here speaking to her about my cases, conceptualization cases. I'm doing them in Spanish, talking about, certain diagnoses in Spanish and really getting familiar with using clinical terms using my native language, which is Spanish, and being able to have that support from her, or feeling like, hey, you know what, I don't know, or I don't feel comfortable saying this in Spanish, and being able to transition back in English. She helps me out in helping me translate that for me to really kind of get that into my brain and being able to help the families. And I feel like I, more than anything, have been very blessed to be part of Family Connections, because I recall my first Spanish speaking client, and it was the most heartfelt moment in my entire life, where I felt like I am in the path where I am supposed to. This is my calling, and this is where I want to go ahead and give back to my community, and let's start breaking some of Joe's generational trauma that we tend to have within all of our families. And so if you guys are able to really start searching or start figuring out the population that you want to work with, do not hesitate to ask support from our professors. One thing that I've noticed more than anything is that if they have experience working with that population, if they have any knowledge or any way that to support you, they're going to go ahead and do it. To them, it's not overreaching. To them, it's like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So the more questions you come, the more of an open mind, believe me, it's going to be a really great experience for you all.
Thank you so much, Griselda, for sharing your experiences going through clinical training here. I'm also just love to hear you comment on the amount of support that you've gotten from Dr. Roller and from your faculty members here, because I think one of the challenges that a lot of distance learners experience, not just in our program, but in distance learning environments across the nation, is this feeling of being disconnected from faculty and from just the services that are provided at the university. And the Master's in Counseling program has really been trying to navigate those challenges for truly the past, I think, 7 to 10 years, because we've been offering online learning for opportunities for a while now. And this has become especially clear throughout the past 2 years of the COVID pandemic, is ways that we can close in, like narrow the gap that our distance learners feel while being a student in our program. And what Griselda just described, like having one-on-one mentoring relationships with your faculty, is definitely one of the easiest ways for us that we could think of, is like, how can we invite students in and create tailored, unique, mentoring experiences for our students. I'm going to talk more about our faculty in just a moment, but our faculty come from such a broad range of identities, career backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. And it's, I think, given just the diversity represented in our faculty, our hope is that incoming students can see people who look like them, who speak the same language as them, and who have similar background experiences as they do. So those mentoring relationships can be really rooted in a sense of shared understanding, mutual respect, and support. So yeah, thank you again, Griselda. I'm gonna keep running because I really want to check in with Tasmir in a moment. But this another area that we strategically include DEI content and initiatives is around student support, engagement, and mentoring. Now, we've just been speaking about mentoring related to clinical training and just general student mentoring, but there are other structured ways that PAU and the Master's in Counseling program really tries to create opportunities that are tailored specifically for our students surrounding DEI content. And The first of which that I'm going to talk about is professional development opportunities. We understand that as a student in our program, even with even with the curriculum that we have, we cannot cover everything, and we cannot answer every question that you have related to your continued learning. And so what we also do is we offer free and discounted trainings for our students for professional development on a wide range of counseling topics, populations, and issues. So, and diversity, equity, and inclusion, social justice is a huge part of the types of trainings that we offer. Also, the Center for Educational Excellence is a really great kind of entity on campus that is sharing and disseminating multicultural and social justice resources with our students, staff, and faculty. Oh, thanks for popping that in, Shelby. Yeah, so there are opportunities for you to bolster and continue your learning while you're in school. So if you look at the program of studies and you say, okay, well, I like all of this looks great, and also I'm interested in these core issues, it is likely, if not almost guaranteed, that we have trainings available on those specific issues outside of the core counseling curriculum. We also have another area of student support is on our student group offerings. And I don't, Tasmira, I didn't know if you want to just jump in at any point on this slide, but I would love to hear kind of about your experiences being a student in this program. And yeah, come on in.
Yeah, of course, I can expand on that a bit. So just to remind everyone, I'm a first year's master's in counseling student at Palo Alto University. And similar to what Griselda said earlier, I've had nothing but positive experiences with my professors so far. And even in terms of support in them addressing my needs as like a Muslim student and a student of Pakistani heritage. And so I've had conversations with my professors around wanting to work with certain groups of populations. And as Griselda mentioned, I also talked to Dr. Roller because I had a class with her in my first quarter. And she pointed me in some really great directions where I had mentioned to her that I wanted to work with Muslim clients and work with the Muslim population. And she also went out of her way to ask me if I had any other languages that I could speak. And so when I mentioned to her that I am multilingual, she made sure to point me in the direction of clinical practicums that I could apply to, where my cultural background and my languages would be used as a skill and as an asset. And so I really appreciated that because, being a first quarter counseling student, I wasn't sure where to start looking. And so I feel like she provided some really great mentorship in that direction for me. And as for the master's in counseling classes, as we had mentioned earlier in the presentation, there's kind of this like layering of information and knowledge related to multiculturalism. And I've seen a lot of that just going from my first quarter to my second quarter as well. And I know that like when you first apply, the program kind of talks about, a general level of multicultural counseling, but multicultural counseling thus far has been included in almost every single class that I've taken, and literally in every class that we have. So every week we're talking about multicultural counseling. We're talking about different kinds of populations. And when we do breakout rooms on Zoom and we're applying our skills, we're provided case studies that include multicultural populations. We're also encouraged to use the multicultural counseling skills that we are building. And specifically for one of my classes this quarter, our diagnosis class, we have a whole textbook separate from our primary readings that's dedicated to culture and psychopathology. So, we obviously read like the DSM-5 to see how we're going to be diagnosing disorders, but on top of that, we have parallel readings looking at how certain disorders look in different cultures to different people and how they're described in different languages as well. So I feel like my experience so far with Palo Alto University in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion has been really great. And it's really refreshing to see, every class that we have week after week, there is this really great discussion around diversity and inclusion, and really get great discussions around multicultural populations, and how we as future counselors really can use our multicultural skills to make sure that we're addressing the unique needs of each population.
Thank you so much, Tasmir. And I think it's so helpful to hear about how the diagnosis class is really handling that, what that looks like for you all, having a parallel rating to kind of to support the DSM. That's really amazing. Thank you so much. And at any point in time, as you're listening to our students share their experiences, please, attendees, ask questions in the chat box. I know some of you already have, but you're welcome to send your questions for Tasmir and Griselda at any point as well. So I'm going to kind of get a move on here. So as I mentioned, our faculty, we recognize that diversity, equity, inclusion really starts at our leadership, right? Who are the faculty in our department, and what kinds of trainings and experiences do they have that creates an environment, an inclusive environment that creates a multiculturally competent environment. And over the years, we have really created this diverse and multifaceted group of faculty that are coming to our program from a wide range of identities and experiences, but also cultural or career backgrounds. Some of them, professional counseling is not their first career, and maybe not even their second career, but they've had completely other careers before becoming a counselor and becoming a professor. We have a wide variety of languages spoken across our faculty. And so Dr. Roller was a good example of one of our faculty members who is a fluent Spanish speaker and has integrated Spanish speaking into her coursework and into her mentoring. We have other, we have faculty who speak Mandarin, who speak Thai, who of course speak Spanish, and so many other languages represented among us that if there are opportunities for specific support, mentoring in the many of the languages that you speak. And I'm just going to bring these slides up. I won't be able to talk individually about each of our professors, but you will also see that our professors are coming with clinical specializations that are very unique as well. Represented in our faculty, we have people who focus on crisis and trauma, people who focus on working with immigrants and refugees, people who specifically focus on working with sexuality issues or LGBTQIA populations. One of our faculty works primarily with mothers and maternal mental health. Some of our other faculty members who again work with the Latinx population, et cetera. So we have so many clinical practitioners on our faculty who have specialized, and that expertise is really available for our students in terms of mentoring, in terms of research and clinical case consultation. I'm gonna check the chat. Okay, thanks for popping that in there, Shelby. So I am going to actually stop sharing for a moment and check in with this group to see what questions you have at this point of what you've kind of learned about us so far. What questions you have for me or Griselda or Tasmir? Anything I can clarify or expand upon?
I just have a quick question about the slides that you presented. They were really great, and I was just wondering if you'll be posting those also along with the recording of this session, so that we can, digest, marinate on some of the information that you provided.
Yes, just Shelby, we will be doing that, correct? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Elena, I know we're sending out the recording, so we'll figure out a way to kind of compile some resources and get them out to everyone too.
Yeah, everything ends up on YouTube, so we can put links to the other resources down below.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Corey.
So I have a quick question. I was talking to Griselda through chat as you were presenting, and she let me know that you can start practicum earlier or choose to do it at the end of your program. Do you mind walking through that and how we can get placed with working with minority populations and how that process should start?
Sure, I can start us off, and then Griselda, if you want to add anything to what I share, just jump on in. But so we do have a program of studies. So it's a when you enroll in the program, you're able to see your course schedule through graduation. So you can basically, what classes you'll be taking, which quarter and when. And the same goes for practicum. So getting started with your clinical training. And we do try to get people to stay on their original plan of studies, only because it's you're able to go through your program with your cohort. So with the same members you started on your first day of class with, you have that support throughout your program of studies. And if you alter the course of that, you can sometimes lose the opportunity to take classes with your cohort, but there is flexibility in your program of studies. If you have to delay the start of your practicum and internship, that is not uncommon. And certainly in today's day and age, with so much stuff going on, I think that is a strength of our program, is that you can complete all of your coursework before starting practicum and internship. It does delay your graduation, depending on how many quarters you push back. So there's potential that your graduation can be delayed, but you absolutely can kind of slow down on your program of studies if life happens, which it does. And about a year into the program is typically when I start recommending to students to start researching practicum opportunities in their area. So we, as an institution, we have a list of agencies that we've worked with in the past, but you are welcome to identify agencies in your community that we have not yet partnered with. So we kind of have a starting off point for you that you can take a look at and be like, okay, so I want to work primarily with LGBTQIA folks. So here's a list of agencies in our community that really focus on, sexual minority mental health. So you can do that. And, or you can look to your community, do Google searches, look around, see what recommendations people have, and then approach sites that we haven't already partnered with and say, hey, is there a potential for partnership here and for practicum site placement? So we're also open to that as well. So if Fabiola, in your question, you'd asked how you can be connected with sites that serve marginalized communities. And so it's twofold, right? You can look to see what sites we have worked with in the past, and you can also look to your own community and say, okay, these are organizations that I really want to partner with. Are there opportunities for me to do practicum there? Not sure if you have follow-up questions to that, I'm open.
No, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions from folks? So Sarah has asked, are a certain amount of hours needed working in the mental health field to apply? No, we do not have a cutoff on, or we don't have a requirement, I should say, that you have experience working in the mental health field. Of course, that's an asset to an application, but we also recognize that there are plenty of other types of career and work-related experiences that you can bring in that translate really well to mental health counseling. I'll share with you all, when I applied to my master's in counseling program, I had been a full-time bartender working my way through my undergraduate. And I explained on my personal statement that, like, while bartending, of course, is not an official mental health role, I do a lot of counseling in that position. Looking back on it, I kind of cringe, but we recognize that our students are coming in from all sorts of different career backgrounds, and all of those career backgrounds can be potentially, really incredible experiences in becoming a counselor.
Hi, my name is Lindsay. I have a quick question. Aside from, pulling from different experiences, and of course, it doesn't have to be direct, directly related to mental health, which is good to hear. Do you guys also just take into account like somebody's maybe desire to, interest in this program, but not necessarily like any direct experience, or maybe just like anecdotal experience, like if they work in, I'm speaking for myself, like in the tech industry, and, I work with a lot of diverse groups of people and different personality types. Can something like that translate into, being applicable for this program, or are you guys looking for other things?
Lindsay, I think it absolutely can. It can be very applicable and can be a great asset to your application. But the responsibility is on you to really show that to us, right? So I may see on your resume that you're currently, a software engineer working in tech, and may not immediately connect the dots of all of the things that you just shared for me. And so that's where your personal statement in your interview comes in, where it's like you're explaining to me, okay, now I get it. Working in tech doesn't initially seem like mental health experience, but here are the things that I'm doing that are actually preparing me to pursue this work. And the success of your personal statement really hinges upon, first of all, your understanding of the role of a mental health counselor. So definitely do your research and make sure that you understand what it is a counselor does. And then, clearly articulate how you uniquely are set up and prepared to join the field of professional counseling. So I want you to connect those dots for us, right? Show us how you're prepared to enter into this line of education, and why you feel passionate about it.
I hear you. Thank you so much.
Of course. I'm seeing that we are at the end of time. I'm open to fielding any additional questions that folks have. So if after this you're like, oh, I totally forgot to ask them something, please email either me, or you can welcome to email Shelby with any admissions related questions and program related questions after this. But it's been such a pleasure getting to meet all of you today and getting to hear from a few of you. And thank you for attending our webinar today.
Thanks, Megan. I'm going to stop the recording if you all want to stick around.